Rituals are a fun time. Sure, it takes a long time to press the virgin blood out so the skin snaps and crackles, and killing your kin instead of a king can be slightly bothersome, but as I always say, terrible without punctuality is simply terrible, and that's no good. Cultists love basements, and they're usually too poor to have their own. The demons in the business of money were too goddamn clever and too brutal, and they go by the name Official Prohibition plus Four-Wheeled Vehicle. We were in Charlie's mother's basement. Imagine summoning a demon, only to have them scoff at your neat room and your boxers hanging over the chair. They'd go back to hell and tell all the other demons all about it. What a horrible way to ruin one's reputation. Aesthetics was very important for cultists. Skillfully, and taking just enough not to make the brushes too wet, we dipped them into the constrained old man. In case he wanted something to eat, we gagged him with an apple. I didn't feel like I got enough appreciation for my kindness. When I tied him to the pipes, I made a bunch of twirls and nooses, which looked pretty cool. A large knife licked a deep cut through his back, enough to give him about 3 minutes of pain. Paint. I dipped my nose into the lukewarm blood and blew out. The sound of bubbles always gave me joy as a child, and now. Charlie's head, covered by a veil, was turned towards me, and I could imagine him thinking, "You cheeky old bugger, when are you going to stop being so childish?" And the answer to that would be never, because there's a value to being a bit childish. On each edge of the pentagram, we poured lemon juice, peeled a bit of apple, gave it a kiss, and bashed the head of a baby. Some peace and quiet was always appreciated. Always. Especially if you got to bash a head in the process of attaining it. In the very middle of the pentagram, there was a cage made for a dog, but we stuffed a virgin in there. Nowadays, you've got to be sustainable about this, for the health of the planet. Plus, there was enough space. He was just a child, maybe a bit fat. It's easier to find virgin children than adults because adults eat cheese. He was completely naked and completely drugged to sleep, as it was quite an annoying thing to do with him screaming and crying, and so, don't you just hate it when people give you shit for doing your job? This was a ritual we'd done quite a lot, so we finished preparations quickly. We stood around the pentagram in a circle and started chanting. The blood shone and the runes moved around the edges. My stomach clenched. I'd done about 50 rituals, and there was something about this one that irritated me. Of course, the virgin died, and with him the cage disappeared as a large blue flame enveloped them, and when it had dissipated, a demon stood there. The demon stood at about 2 meters tall, and its skin was the palest of whites. The sun doesn't really reach down that far. Oh, and it had no genitalia, so something we love to make fun of. Naturally, as all of us would when snatched and thrust into a cage, it beat its fists against the barriers that were formed by the pentagram. It was then that I realized something gravely wrong. The walls weren't supposed to move or wedge. They should stand still, as if a child sprinted into a brick wall full force. But they shook and wobbled, and by my estimates, it meant the demon would get out in 2 minutes and slaughter thousands of children and parents, but worse, my reputation would be stained. Almost instantly I chanted the release, but nothing happened. My eyes widened when I saw the demon had its middle finger through the barrier. At this, it smiled, showing its teeth, and its tongue swirled around its lips. This was the best-case scenario for the demon, and it knew that very well. The cultists all turned to me wide-eyed. This had never happened before. They didn't say it, but I knew that's what they thought for no other reason than I thought so. They shouted that they were scared, and some of them fell down on their backs, thankfully not the 3 maintaining the chant that powered the pentagram holding up the barrier. I didn't have to worry that they'd stop doing that. All cultists were singers at one point. We go through many phases. I looked at the pentagram and the moving runes. What was the problem? Could I have written the runes wrong? No. I'd done it drunk and sleep-deprived without an issue. Must be something else. After 2 attempts, I figured that I couldn't figure it out. I went over to the bookshelf and grabbed the book that looked like a Bible. except for it was completely black, its pages like charcoal, and the text written in white and red, and I flapped. Yes, flapped. The pages are quite annoying to move, and my fingers were shaking, until I found myself on the ritual about the dick-lengthening demon. And if anybody asks, yes, this was a ritual that Charlie's mother requested. Her marriage wasn't going too well. And I realized my mistake almost immediately. We had left out a crucial ingredient, and I cursed in Latin. Futuo, futuo, futuo. Yeah, I know. Am I not really cool for knowing that? We had left out 3 salted lion ballsacks that were supposed to be formed in a triangle around the Virgin. Before I'd known what the problem actually was, I was pretty sure we were doomed. Now, I was certain. Salt we could get, so half the requirements were finished. The issue was that the nearest lion ballsacks were continents away. We'd already taken the ones in the zoos.
I'm going to force your daughter's remains down your throats,
the demon said. It had gotten its head through. Its voice was deep and crackled, and so demonic babies thought they were an angry mother. That's pretty weak, a cultist muttered, standing in the sidelines. Yeah, another one agreed.
Okay then, do better,
the demon retorted. I had an ingenious idea. It was possible to use another ballsack, a phrase I found myself saying too much. It simply had to be a source of powerful vitality, which salted human balls dipped in orange juice could do just as well. But human ballsacks were also something I'd stopped collecting. Pull down your damned pants, I said to 3 of the cultists, getting a knife and tossing it to them. Cut your ballsacks off. Are you rational? Not on my calmest days. It's either that or a stain on the reputation, I said whilst running up the long stairs, and after 15 seconds of thinking, they instantly realized that I was in the right, and I heard the agonizing shrieks when I was pouring orange juice into a bowl. I mixed the salt in and ran down. I was met by the sight of 3 passed-out cultists, their black pants pulled down to their ankles. The pain was too much for them to handle, understandingly, and instead, Martha stood there holding the 3 ballsacks. One of the balls had fallen out on the floor, and she'd accidentally stepped on it, so they got Charlie to offer up his as well. But he didn't pass out, rather, he came, or should I say went, evident by the white marks on the floor. Fucking masochists. Quickly, I threw the ballsacks into the bowl and I mixed them with the dexterity and speed. It was important to keep the balls in the ballsacks to keep the vitality there. I had to use a 2-fingered grip on each one. Finally, they were done and I placed the ballsacks in a triangle fashion. It didn't work.
Fool,
the demon spat.
Even amateurs know that it's the pungent lion smell which keeps demons at bay.
Fucking backseater, I muttered. Half the demon's body was through the barrier. Its arms swirled forward and back, trying to grip any of the cultists, but they weren't within range. I calculated that we had about 1 minute left, and most of the cultists were bleeding out of their balls, which was one of the better fates. I realized then that when desperate times called for desperate measures, something had to be done. I walked up to the wall, took off my clothes, standing completely naked and feeling useful. I wouldn't need my clothes anymore. There was one thing that annoyed all cultists, and that would never fail to produce a flinch. Attics are better than basements. The demon's eyes widened, and it was in that moment that I tumbled into it, pushing it within the pentagram. Its claws twisted and broke my arms within a second, and twisted my neck within the next, and my soul fled out of my body, but it was stuck within the pentagram. The cultists that were awake stood around staring at the scene with disgusted eyes. What a fucking moron! Of course basements are better than attics. Yeah, right. As a soul, I witnessed all of this. The demon stood up and stared at them, confused. They stared back, and there was no movement except for the blood pouring out of the place the blood sacks were.
Why haven't you banished me yet?
He asked. We don't know how to.
What?
He said, and he could have very well broken out of the barrier, but he was too caught up in anger to do so.
That is the very first fucking thing cultists learn, you morons.
Yeah, we get it. No need to be so harsh.
No need to be so harsh. I should pulverize your balls and your eyes at the same moment. How the fuck don't you know such a simple fucking phrase? You're an embarrassment to the cult community. I'm telling the entire hell.
Please don't do that.
Please? You're saying please to a demon.
Come on, man. This is my first.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
The demon said.
Hey, head cultist, I know you're in here with me. Can you believe this shit?
I was also filled with disbelief, but I could not speak it out.
You know what? I don't even want to kill you. I feel like a disgrace just for talking to you. Change occupations. Jesus Christ. Wow, you even made me say the name.
Hey, man, that's too harsh.
No. Am I really that crazy for thinking this is unacceptable? I haven't been this mad since I got assigned dick lengthening as my job. You know what? Here, I'll do it for you fucking morons.
And we were gone. My reputation, of course, had already reached hell. Most demons rather enjoyed me. Getting a body was no problem, I just had to go through a few weeks of torture. Quite gruesome stuff, but it was all worth it, because now I get to play the demon part in the exchange. A couple of years after that, I was summoned for the first time. It was a couple of teenagers holding the Black Bible, and they'd scratched out the runes and pentagram very roughly. They probably thought nothing would happen, and I only ate them for business reasons. What can you do? I got myself a little place, and I've been writing ever since. It's a bit hard to find a keyboard to fit my large fingers. I've retorted to typing with my 2 index fingers. Anyway, kids, the main point with this story is that if you're getting into the business of summoning demons, read the instructions carefully.